Good morning and welcome. We're about to begin our program, Making the Customer Journey Work, 3 Critical Processes. Today's program will be brought to you by Totango, Kapost, and CMSWire. CMSWire was founded in 2003. We have more than 300 editorial contributors. Our key services include more than 200 news articles a month and features, monthly editorial themes, tweet jams, hangouts, webinars. We have 3 primary topic areas, or at least groups of topics: customer experience, digital marketing, social business, enterprise collaboration, and enterprise information management. We'll be having a giveaway today. This is a valuable contest that we're having, a couple $1,000 worth, I believe. We'll be choosing 3 attendees to get a pass to the Digital Customer Experience Strategy Summit coming up on September 24th in New York City. We'll be announcing the winners immediately after the Q&A portion of this program, so stick around for your chance to win. You must be present and confirm your availability to go to this. It is in New York City, so that's a consideration there. We'll also be asking you to submit questions during the course of the program or at the end. Please use that function at the Q&A modules, or you can send your questions in by Twitter at CMSWire. Here's today's agenda. We'll be doing some introductions. We'll be going over a rough definition of customer success. We'll be talking about the 3 critical processes that we mentioned in our title. These are things that customer success teams need to be effective. We'll also talk about how companies scale with customer success as they grow. We'll have a few conclusions and then our Q&A. I'll introduce myself at this point. I'll be your moderator today. I'm Tom Murphy, General Manager and Editorial Director for Simpler Media Group, publishers of CMSWire. Customer success is one of the primary areas I cover, and I've recently interviewed several of the CEOs of the leading companies in this space. I also cover customer experience, CMS, digital marketing, collaboration, analytics, and more. I'm also the author of Web Rules, How the Internet is Changing the Way Consumers Make Choices. Our panelists include Harry Hirschman. He's Director of Customer Success at Totango, which really is not only the sponsor of today's program, but a leading provider of customer success services. Harry has an MBA from the Wharton School of Business, a BA in economics from UCLA, and was a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. Thank you for your service there, Harry.
Thank you.
He has extensive background in building, optimizing, and driving all aspects of customer acquisition. Our second panelist will be Riley Gibson, Vice President of Customer Success at Kapost. Riley is formerly the founder and CEO of Napkin Labs, which was acquired in 2014 by Jardix. Napkin Labs provided community insight and innovation tools. Their customers included Nike, and Microsoft, and some other companies you might have heard of. So let's get started. To set the scene, I'd like to go through 3 slides that I wrote up that have to do with some of the observations I have from covering this field recently. And the first one is customer what? The term customer success still confuses many people. On one hand, it seems like a very old concept. On another hand, it's brand new. And I think people have it confused with marketing, sales, customer support, customer experience. When I go to conferences, I hear all those things. And people are also confused about who it reports to, if it does report to anybody. In my view, and this is strictly my personal view of this because it varies from person to person in this area, customer success is an affirmative cross-company effort to help your customers find success with your service or product. And it's much more than that. It's staying in touch with them. It's staying involved with them. It's monitoring their health. And I'm sure Harry and Riley will talk about that a little later in the program. But it's a single concept with myriad ways to structure it in different organizations. In that way, it's very flexible, nimble, agile, whatever you want to call it. But it needs to tailor to your organization and across the organization. Let's talk about some of the differences between those other categories. Sales, typically developing leads, making contacts, and closing the deal. Marketing is more about building brand and communication. And even with personalization efforts we're seeing today, I think customer success goes to another level of this. Customer support is responding to customer problems. And customer experience, which I didn't put on the slide, is more about what your customer experience is when they deal with your company. I think that's part of this too, but it's not, none of those things is all of it. Customer success is about delivering ongoing value to your customers and staying in touch with them and knowing what's going on all the time. Why is this so important, especially right now? Well, the old model, especially in software sales, was to close the sale and wait for renewal time. Those days are gone or disappearing quickly, and you can blame the cloud for that. We're now in the subscription economy. Revenue generation is an ongoing effort, and ensuring customer health constantly avoids any surprises, builds loyalty, and leads to add-on sales. It does a lot more than that too, and we'll get into some more details. And now I think it's time to get into some of those details. Harry, why don't you explain Totango's vision for customer success?
Absolutely. Thanks very much. So if you really look at what customer success is, I think you'll agree that ultimately it's about customer value, just like you said. It's about keeping your promise to customers. It's about making sure they are getting the business outcome that they were looking for when they signed up with you. So first and foremost, it's about value. But actions speak louder than words. And how do you know if a customer is getting that value or not? And so what they do with your product matters more than what they say about it. And in the SaaS world, we have the capacity for real-time sensors to actually know. There's no need for anecdotal information or for guessing or for conversations with customers to tell you. You can actually see what they're doing. And that allows the opportunity for contextual engagement, both on the marketing side and on the support. And like you said, overarching all of that is the broad time with the right content, with the right message, with the right intervention. It's a very powerful way of bonding them to you. So those are the things we think about as far as a framework. On the next slide, we talk about, it's important that customer success be a part of every team. It's more than a single function. When it permeates the entire organization, then you really leverage all your people because customers have touch points at various locales within your country, various organizations within your company. And if everyone contributes to adding value for the customer, then everybody wins. Riley?
Riley, can you explain Kapost's approach to this? I think we might be having a little trouble with Riley's audio. See, he's on
Perhaps
mute.
still on mute.
Well, let's go back to your slide.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, there's Riley. Riley,
Okay,
I'm sorry we
about
had you
that.
on mute there. Let's go on and hear Kapost's approach to this.
Yeah, so, I mean, as Harry mentioned, it's really customer success is about keeping that promise. And if you just look at SaaS economics, renewal, growth of accounts is just so critical to growing a business quickly. So for us at Kapost, customer success is so essential. So we have it as its own department. So it's in line with sales, marketing, and product. And actually the VPs of each of those departments, so sales, marketing, product, as well as customer success, all have variable comp that plays into renewal and how well we're doing in renewal. So I think, we've organized customer success as a separate team, but we're also experimenting and playing with different ways to really integrate those different teams because, sales is making the promise that then we have to keep and live up to. Marketing is in charge of so many touch points and we want to create a consistent consumer experience. And obviously product plays a huge piece in customer success. So it's really blending that, making it important having a seat at the table with the CEO, but then also really integrating with different groups.
So now let's take a look at those three critical processes. And I'm going to be curious to hear from both of you about this area. Let's start with Harry on this.
We have a shared point of view about the three critical processes. First and foremost is mapping the journey, because it is about the journey and not the destination. So it's in order to know where people are on the journey, you need to monitor and then detect problems as they go. So in the follow-on slides here, I think 2 forward, we'll, one more.
One more? Okay, the customer's
Right,
starting.
right. So this is a kind of an A to B way of looking at it, and overly simplistic. The the approach to customer success is not about is about managing the journey, about understanding, about measuring, about driving customer value at every point across the whole journey.
Let's take a look at how that works.
Well, it's a very complex journey. The previous slide is very simple. It's easy just to think about, hey, we close the deal, and then we're waiting for renewal. And in between, they're going to use the product. But in between, it's actually it's almost it's a vibrant ecosystem, and a perilous ecosystem at that. So the important thing for CSMs to understand is where their customers are along that journey and where they need to be, and then to proactively manage this journey for every customer, to know at each point if the customer is getting value, and if not, to take appropriate action, contextual action. The green line is the optimal path for customers, and the objective is to keep every customer on this course, to ensure that every decision point across this journey, the customer decides to continue with you and to grow with you. And we see commonly, the 3 stages here. Most SaaS companies have an onboarding phase, and it's absolutely critical that go well. If you get off to a good start, then you kind of stay there. And if you don't, it takes a lot of effort to try and get them back up there, and sometimes you just never do. But immediately after that, the onboarding phase is this critical adoption period where your tool might be up and running, but the habit pattern is not necessarily ingrained, not necessarily broad usage, and then leading into the renewal or upsell time frame. If you haven't done a good job in the adoption phase, it often is customers are asking themselves, well, why did we have this in the first place?
Very interesting. Are we ready to go to the next slide here and maybe hear a little bit about from Riley about how Kapost defines a customer journey?
Yeah, so I think this is something we learned very, very quickly, that those key phases are so critical, and how we approach each of those phases needs to change a little bit. So as we thought about our customer journey, first of all, some of our sales cycles are 3 months, 6 months, 9 months for larger accounts. So a lot of the perception, a lot of the promise is obviously established, in the pre-sales process, and that's a critical part of the journey that we need to have a conversation in. So we've done a lot of work around how customer success in our department plays into pre-sales. And then, as Harry mentioned, onboarding, that's almost the first impression of our team. That's such a key area to really get customers off to the right start. And then, we carry that into habit building and value building. So a lot of our tool, helps companies achieve more visibility in terms of their content marketing operations. There's workflow. So there's a lot of pieces of our tool that, to be very valuable, they need to be ingrained in people's daily habits. So, that phase is critical for us to find what are all the ways that we can encourage people, coach people or reward people to really build those habits with it, which then translate into creating that value and then measuring that value for customers and really showing it to them. So, the needs of customers, the players at each of those stages change. So we really need to and use this framework to really think about how we design the right experience to really push different goals at each of those phases. And if you go to the next slide, there's something I always like to refer to, which is Gartner's hype cycle, which is more about how technology is normally accepted in the marketplace. But I think for customer success and just how we think about it, it plays in. There's kind of the sales process. There's this peak of inflated expectations, and we then realize once the sale has come through and a customer starts to realize, there is change management, there is work to really establish those habits. And so you often, hear this trough of disillusionment. It's, oh, this is taking a while. there's all those anxieties that start to creep up in that onboarding process. And so you can kind of see through this model, and we use it a lot, there's the mindset of the customer changes throughout that journey. And so we really want to design an experience that speaks to each of those stages and promotes goals that are specific to each of those stages of the customer's journey.
It's really interesting. And I'm going to go back to that last slide for just a moment here. It's really interesting to see the value building portion of this and those last two blue lines you had there. I'm hoping we're going to get a chance to expand on that a little later in the program, because I think that value building is a huge part of customer success that a lot of companies may not be doing right now. But for now, let's move on to the next subject, which is monitoring customers' health. This is something that I think is really an interesting aspect, and this is where I think a company like Totango really comes in. So Harry, would you explain to us a little bit about gauging customers' health?
Oh, absolutely. This really is the tough part in all of this. How do you measure value? How do you know a customer is getting value? And the most common ways to do this are customer surveys and support tickets and other CRM-type metrics. And then with the emergence of customer success as a field and of products like ours to fill the need, I'd suggest that there's another way, a better way. And it can include all of those previous metrics, but fundamentally what we're adding to this is what customers are doing and not doing in your product, and that's the best gauge of value. What features are they using? How frequently are they using it? Who is using it? And importantly, who is not? This is the only way you can really get early warning signals and be proactive and do this at scale.
Harry, what happens when you get that early warning signal?
Let's take a look up just in the next couple of slides, but then you know which action to take. True health scores need to include all of these elements. And you can see the list of indicators that we have of ways that you can measure it and not have to guess at it. And contextually, what you do is different for each type of customer that you have. What you'll do with an enterprise customer is different from what you'll do with an SMB. So many companies have what's commonly referred to as high touch, maybe a white glove segment of customers where they have CSMs at a low ratio, and so they can really get a lot of tender loving care. But commonly, even companies with big enterprise segments also have a high velocity segment or an SMB segment, or smaller customers, a self-serve segment perhaps. Textually relevant message through the automated marketing programs and linking those to health metrics and events, actual events that they're doing within your product.
Great.
So what we see here is that it's important that customer segments are different, and they're going to have different behaviors, and you need to measure health differently for them. And so whatever system you use needs to take this level of complexity and turn it into fidelity, information that's granular enough and tuned enough to be appropriate for the customers you're dealing with. We have one more slide on that just to show kind of the next level of detail about all the different types of attributes and things, whether it's using modules or activities and what exactly they've done. All of these trace back to engagement, utilization, usage rates, and customer satisfaction in one way or another.
And can these be tailored to particular companies?
Oh, absolutely. These are customizable for every company that uses our tool. It has to be that way. And then you customize it for every segment, and you customize it for the stages of their customer journey as they map their customer journey. Kapost is different from other SaaS companies, and it has to be adapted to that.
That's great. And, I'm asking all the questions here. I want to remind our listeners that you can ask questions, too, at any time during the presentation by hitting the Q&A button in the upper right and going to the column in the right column where it says Q&A to send your questions in to us. We will be taking those at the end of the program, so please enter them at any time a question comes up in your mind. But first, let's look at how Kapost monitors health of their customers. And again, Riley, my sense is that this is something that varies from at every company. There's different health measures. There's different ways to measure it. There's different levels of engagement. Tell us how you do this at Kapost.
Yeah, and I think Tom, that's a really good point. And I think one of our learning curves is when we first started, looking at, what is our health metric. I think we took kind of a generic approach and just, picked a few things that we thought all customers should be doing, and that was sort of the health score. And there wasn't enough customization in that to really truly get eyes into how companies were using the tool and really through those different stages of the customer journey that we talked about. So I think we kind of hit up against that learning curve and then went back to the drawing board and started segmenting our health score and actually looking at okay, what are the different stages of the journey that they go through? So onboarding, we know that there's 3 things in our tool, the usage sweet spot, that if they get to, we're going to be in much better shape. So let's link the health score to those aspects. We talked about, and Tom, you mentioned the value building piece for us. If we come into a customer and talk about every single bell and whistle, I think, eyes start to glaze over. So, I think a good product and how we think about Kapost is that it can kind of unravel not unravel, but, really start to unveil itself over time. So we look for, in those earlier stages, a customer health score that's much more focused on, our customers going deep with these 1 or 2 features that are so critical to starting to unlock, analytics and other pieces of value. And then we can coach them to build on that. So I think, for us, health monitoring, there's definitely a learning curve there, and it's been a process of tweaking it and really narrowing in, running a bunch of cohort analysis to see what are those true metrics that are important to measure. But now it's really become kind of our eyes and ears into our customer base. And I think, beyond just being that early warning system, it's also unlocked some really interesting experiences for Kapost, because we can see, over time, we know there's certain features that we want people to be using in certain ways. So we know that unlocks value for them. So we can monitor that usage, and if it starts to slip, that's a perfect moment to come in and start coaching them with best practices, with content that can help them really think about content marketing strategy and really push, coaching at them really to help build that usage. And then also, I think there's also a fun side to this, which is just, when we see customers really taking off in one aspect, it becomes a platform for rewarding them, sending T-shirts, really, and that, I think those coaching and rewarding become part of building those habits and reinforcing those habits. So, it's obviously our eyes and ears, but then has also unlocked some interesting, just experiential things that we can do with customers to really build their loyalty.
Thanks,
Riley.
I think
the things you're doing with rewarding are really interesting from my perspective. It's not something you see every SaaS company doing. I think it really sets you apart.
Yeah,
I think that's really true. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it's, sometimes we get so focused just on, coming in and intervening versus the fun side of it. I mean, we're all human. A lot of times I think in a B2B environment, we kind of think of someone that's buying SaaS software as just they're so focused and just solely focused on their job. And, we kind of dehumanize that. And I think, the rewarding piece, the fun piece, although it sounds somewhat frivolous, is just really key to building that relationship over time and just interjecting some fun, reinforcing good habits.
I was just going to add that I think this slide in particular shows how customer success goes far beyond those other disciplines like customer support or sales. This is not about marketing. This is about really interacting with your clients and getting in on a granular level with them and looking at their health and helping them do a better job. So I really like this slide a lot. Thank you for showing this to us, Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to what we do when we detect some of those early warning signals. And I think we're again going to start with Harry here and talk about the EWS at Totango.
That's right, the early warning system. That's why we help you get through this. Early warning system that monitors and listens for leading indicators. Listens is key, and leading indicators is also really important. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday if you can't fix it. So then it has to tell you, well, which customers need my attention and why, so you can take the right actions. And it tells you well in advance if it's a leading indicator, so you can actually make a difference. Now, to visualize how this kind of gets operationalized in real life, it has to come from these kind of visionary statements that we're making down to an individual customer success manager with a book of accounts in their portfolio, and what do they do? And so helping CSMs prioritize, take the right customer actions at the right time, that's what lets you scale on this, because there's just not enough time in the day otherwise. And you're doing the contextually relevant actions lets you maximize that customer impact.
Yeah, and I think, just going back to how Kapost we think about it, we actually, with a lot of our larger accounts, have a pretty high-touch model. So we pair a customer success manager and a consultant to really align with the customer. So the consultant's much more aligned with the executive sponsor, speaking strategically about how Kapost can support their marketing goals. The CSM is very focused on, adoption, so the health score is very important to them. But, as we ladder that up at Kapost, we really try and encourage sort of that account pod, so a CSM and a consultant, to think about their shared book of accounts as a franchise. They're sort of the CEO and COO of that franchise. And, as we know, in a leadership position, visibility is so key, and prioritizing time is so key. So I think, tools like health and other tools that help you, see your overall book of accounts, see where the issues might be arising. It's helped us prioritize our time so much better, and really given tools for that customer success manager and consultant to truly own that franchise. And so, we've even taken that to now we do quarterly business reviews where that consultant and CSM, use some of that health data to actually present back to our whole department on, here's what their portfolio looks like. Here are some of the insights from the quarter. Here's sort of what they're committing to really turn some customers around, really talking about the strategy. So I think it's enabled a whole new conversation as we really think about managing accounts at that portfolio level.
Great. Now comes
Before
the hard
we
part.
get into scaling, just to add to Riley's comments from before, QBRs are generally accepted as an excellent practice, and we give a lot of thought into how can we make those better? How can we make those contextually relevant? And so I like to think about those as more of a periodic business review that can take place on several levels, either at the CEO, kind of senior management level, at the VP level, what's more operational, at the front line level as well. And if you can base those on events, trace it back to what Riley had before about in the building value stage. If there's a value plateau that they've reached, that's worthy of another business review. And in that review, you can talk about how we're going to get you to the next plateau and move things forward in that way.
And that's just to add on to that, Harry. I think that's, we've been doing QBRs, and again, that is sort of the more periodic, just step back, sort of review everything type of forum for us. And I think originally when we started doing those, it was so qualitative that it was kind of, what does your book of accounts look like? This account, we have a good relationship, things seem to be going well. You could see generally they're using the tool. So it was, a lot of it was based on kind of hearsay and just thoughts and opinions. And as we started ingraining more of the health score and more discipline into, okay, well, actually, how are they actually using the account? What value are they getting out of the tool? I think bringing that quantitative foundation into the conversation just made that forum so much more actionable. I think that piece of it just really plays nicely with those types of forums.
Right, right. And you use the time-based, the 90 days, 3 months, whatever period you want. That can become a backstop to say, hey, if there was no event that triggers this in that certain amount of time, well, then let's make sure we don't just drift on. Let's see what event we should be driving. But context and it really dictates, and then time becomes the safety net.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now we do want to move on to scaling. This is a big challenge for a lot of companies as they grow, especially in the software space. So let's go on and see what ideas Harry has on this at Totango.
Absolutely. Our ideas, well, and our ideas come from our customers as well. So Riley drives us, and we drive best practices back into his company too. And you can see Xamarin here. Well, no, I mean we need that two-way flow. We don't have a lock on all the good ideas in customer success by any means. But really, to scale, you need to be proactive and time things right, and that means a data-driven approach, so that you know what's going on within an account and how you're affecting or not affecting, driving or not driving value for your customers. Otherwise, it's just, hey, let's just add another CSM every time we add 25 or 50 new customers, or 250, depending on the business model. That's linear scaling, and we want to get beyond that as best we can. And so the automation and the real-time nature of what you have access to with SaaS, and really have the demand that of your systems, is what allows scaling. So again, kind of summary. There's really 5 things that we think about, and I'll let you guys read those. But it's about actions speaking louder than words. So it's usage data. It's actually knowing what they do, not what they say. It needs to be flexible, so you can query at any time, track feature usage, and ask questions of your system on the fly. How many of show me a list of customers that have not adopted this new feature we just released, and we worked our brains out on it, and it's a fantastic feature that would really benefit them, but who's using it and who's not? If you're the analytics do that, getting time to value. It's easy to set up and implement if you have the right data. And you want to bring that data in quickly, so getting through the onboarding process as quickly as you can. Modeling help and adapting to changes with new features. That's all part of scaling. And I just wanted to kind of come back to, it really does, it's more powerful and it scales better if the whole organization is bought into the premise of customer success, and that success comes from driving value. If they're getting value out of it, then they're going to want more of it. So we've talked about this before, and so I'll go ahead and, since we're getting low on time, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, so I think the next slide just goes into how we think about scaling, and to be honest, we're growing quickly, so I think we're still figuring a lot of that stuff out. So for Kapost, we really think about the tools as an essential part of that. So Harry, you mentioned the linear scaling. That's difficult, and there needs to be some of that as we grow, but those tools that cut across the different departments give visibility into all the customers so that we can prioritize time. That's just so key. So we use Totango for that health scoring, gives us the eyes and ears on the customer base. We use Jive just to collaborate around customers across the whole organization, so single accounts, the strategy for those accounts. So that tool set really becomes a critical foundation. We also, at Kapost, we've really realized that in customer success managers, they work so closely with like an admin or a project lead on our customer side, and they develop a really good relationship. But there's also hundreds of users out there that might not have that same opportunity for connection. So really seeing what they're doing and not just saying is key. And then we also use another tool called Intercom that really helps us communicate to that broader user base. So almost like nurture tracks, where we can see if they used a certain feature and then stopped for a while, we can post an in-app message that brings them back in. So again, all these tools, just start to become so key to building that foundation and scaling. But I think, we still have a long ways to go to figure that out.
One of the things that I see a lot in my reporting is there's more and more need for cross-organization communications and collaboration. And this chart in particular reminds me that if everybody's getting the same customer information at the same time, you've got to be careful not to have the service people and the customer success people and the sales people bumping into each other. How do you coordinate that and collaborate across organizations at Kapost, Riley?
So we have the different tools, again, like Totango and Jive that are sort of they create the information, they create the insights, and then also have we have a bucket to place that information in where all different teams can see. But then we've really tried to align, for example, like an account executive, so on the sales department, with a single customer success pod, so a consultant and a CSM, and they'll have weekly one-on-ones where they, review that information, review the data, kind of create a strategy around that account, and that, that in-person collaboration with those teams, keeping them coordinated is, I think, so key. And it's, you can have all the information in the world, but if you're not acting on it in a coordinated way, then it does start to fall apart. So, I think for us, just those in-person one-on-ones, kind of creating that strategy for each account and then executing on it just with the context of all the data we have is key. But I think, that also plays into how we sort of link with product. And I think we're still working on that. How do we efficiently take product feedback and, if we see challenges in adoption, how do we identify what those are and give that feedback to product in an effective way? I think there's still a lot of challenges there, but I think it's really blending the tool with also forums, whether that's in person or on a tool like collaboration tool like Jive, sharing that information and making sure that there's a coordinated plan of attack.
Great.
Well, actually add to that what Riley said, that in-person or periodic weekly check-in amongst a pod or a crew is so important for coordination. And it's admirable that Kapost is investing so much, because that is a big investment of people's time. And you consider there might be 3, 4, 5 people in that meeting, 30 minutes to an hour a week. That adds up to a lot of person hours. Another way to get at your question, Tom, of how do you bring all this information together is get these tools talking together. Ideally, depending on the function, a person's going to have a primary software tool that they're using and a couple of secondaries. And keeping those tools, too many is too much. Even though there's great information in them, they have to. People can only look at so many instruments on an instrument panel. And I'm actually a pilot from my Navy days, so if I use too many aviation analogies, then do stop me. But the one way that we tackle that here at Totango is that we realize that there are primary systems out there already. CRM systems are often that in the post-sale and pre-sale environment. And so getting this usage information, the dashboards, the profiles, we use tagging in order to give situational awareness to people so that those tags are descriptive and colorful and something that a support person can see within their ticketing system that say this is a VIP customer, or this customer is on the CEO's watch list, or is a flagship customer, strategic customer of some kind, or that this customer, as their CSM has rated their risk as extraordinarily high for a period of time. And they know that when a ticket comes up or that an interaction with that customer comes up, that it's different and they need to approach it differently. And that's the kind of context that drives value.
Great. Well, I think we've gone through our presentation now. I'd like to give the audience a chance to speak. We have a couple of dozen questions lined up. before we get to them, any closing thoughts from Riley or Harry? To me, this has been a great exercise to kind of go through it and see how different this is from what most organizations are doing today and what the potential is for improving that process.
And for me at Totango, it's so rewarding to work with our customers like Kapost and like Riley, who are driving this industry forward, this new function. Rewarding to see that we're able to support and add value to that, and rewarding to see how far they take it. So thanks, Riley.
Right.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Let's get into some of the questions now, and I want to remind our listeners that if they stay through the end of the program, we'll be announcing our winners for our giveaway in New York City next week. Very valuable gift, so please stay with us. First question comes from Tris Hussey. How much of customer success is technology dependent versus the human aspect of communicating and connection? And I'm going to jump in there and say, I'm going to guess that you guys are going to say it depends on the particular company, but why don't you tell us what your view is on that?
Well, yeah, I'll step in because the funny analog is a professor of mine at graduate school coached us that the answer to every question you ever get throughout your life is the same. It depends. And you said it too, Tom. It depends on a lot of things. I'd say that in this day and age, the line between technology and personal interactions is very, very blurred. The personal actions depend on the technology to inform them. And technology can deliver what seem like personalized interactions automatically. And that's where context comes in as part of what leads things to scale up. You know, if you have 1,000 customers per customer success manager, they're not going to be able to talk to everybody every time they have a problem. But if your system automatically identifies that, hey, it's been 14 days since this person logged in, and used, let's say, a project management software function, 14 days since they started a new project or since they've updated a milestone, an automated message can go out to that person to say, all right, you've got this many projects open. How are things coming along? And there's a myriad, that's a very simple example, but there's myriad ways, they're much more sophisticated, that actually sequential messaging that says, okay, the customer takes this action, send them either this note or that one. When they take the next action, send them either a third or a fourth. I guess what I'm saying is that the human element still needs to be present, especially for high value, high touch, white glove customers. But informing that with technology is necessary. And then the opposite is also true, that you can't have the human element for all your customers in all segments. So the technology side drives that, and the challenge is to make it human.
Good one. Next question comes from Natalie Clapper. And I think we touched on this quite a bit in the program, but I think some of this bears repeating. I'm going to direct this to Riley. If you could just go over maybe quickly to some of these points. How do you make sure every team is empowered with customer information, and how do you efficiently spread this information? And most importantly, how do you synthesize all that information and keep track of customer feedback?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think something that we think about every day. How do we do it? How do we do it better? I think we have a long ways to go there. I think the first challenge for us was just getting the right information. So we can collect a lot of information, and so hooking sort of those listening devices up in the tool so we can gather more information was sort of step one. The major leap for us was then deciding what information is important. So we did some analysis and looked at, okay, what were, for customers who churned, what were some of their patterns? What did they do? What did they not do? At different points along that customer journey. And then we looked at customers who have upsold and grown really quickly and looked at, what have they done? What have we done to support them? What have they not done in the tool? And that started to give us really good insights into, if they do these three things in the first 90 days, they're much more likely to grow. So I think a big piece was just picking what information do we want to really listen to and pay attention to, and what's sort of noise, if you will. So that was a big piece, and then communicating to the whole company that like this usage sweet spot is so important that we need sales to be talking about this pre-sales so customers know these are things that are key to really work on in the first 90 days. Product started moving some of their resources to how do we make those features even better so people can get started with them. So it's I think part of it is just you're going to have way too much information, so pick what's really important and make sure that gets bubbled up and constantly reported on to each of those groups. And even play around with how can their variable comp be aligned with some of those usage sweet spots. I think that is important to just get everyone really working towards the same goals.
Great. We have about 12 minutes left for questions and about more questions than that on the list. So let's move along here. Lonnie Spratt asks a great question. She serves both enterprise and SMB customers, and she's wondering if Harry can recommend different ways of having different journeys for different types of customers.
They absolutely have different journeys. There's no doubt about it. There's commonality among their needs. There's no doubt there either. The challenge is distinguishing between what's meaningful to each. Your product wouldn't be selling to both if it didn't have meaning to both, and you don't have two different products, I'm assuming. So the question then is, how do you define the journey for each? And the answer is really putting yourself in the customer's shoes. And this can be done at, on the one side of the spectrum is a multi-day offsite, led by specialists and consultants that you bring in. On the other side of the spectrum, it's can be part of the weekly team meeting that you have where you kind of dig in and people bring examples of interesting things that customers have experienced with their product or not. And that or not part, I find, is particularly useful. Because if you understand the context of a company beyond just what you're doing with them, then you often find out that you can do more for them than they thought. They find out that you can do more for them than they thought as well. So that it's a big question, and so I'm not able to give an answer to the level of specificity that I normally like. But I think conceptually, that's the answer. The simple answer is get in their shoes, look at it from their perspective, and look for clusters. Look for marketers are experts at segmentation. Politicians are experts at segmentation, and customer success people need to be experts at segmentation too.
Good. Ashley Chrysostomo asked another good question. How do you measure that effect of the trough of disillusionment through products like Totango? You remember that trough of disillusionment on the hype chart that we were looking at? What measurable actions can contribute to the health score in that regard?
So I think rather than both contribute to that, I'll rather go first.
Yeah, so I think for us, some of that is qualitative, just conversations we're having with customers, whether it's weekly check-ins, et cetera. So some of that is qualitative, but we also, again, we know some of the key features in the tool that, if you start using those and get in the habit of using those as one of our customers, it starts unlocking all these other pieces of value. So analytics, there's so many pieces that starts to unlock. So, in that period, we really watch, are they using our process and workflows? Are they completing tasks in our tool? So there's very specific habits we want to see being formed. And I think, through that period, we can watch customers kind of spike, and then we wait, or we don't wait, but we watch and see if that starts to, keep up the momentum, if we have a real groundswell, or if that starts to taper off. We know there's some more work we need to do there to really, sell the ultimate value. So I think we, again, just really look at specific usage during that period to see, what actions we can take to help.
And so I've got two things to add to Riley's response there. One is that the product usage stuff that he had described, absolutely true. Another element of that is user specific. Which users in an account are doing which actions? And oftentimes what you'll find is that that some are disillusioned and some are not. And the challenge might be just to figure out who they are and address it to them in particular. Secondly, I think that when you have an onboarding process, that's often where the trough comes in. Because they're coming off the sales, they say, wow, the possibilities are limitless. Here's our purchase order. Now it's time for some sort of implementation or integration. It often is not just a couple clicks of a mouse, rarely is. And in that time, that's fraught with risk and danger. And time is one of the primary metrics for that. If your onboarding process is taking longer than you think it should, then disillusionment is not far behind. But time is overly simplistic. Like Riley said, you measure what's being done in that time. But really compressing the onboarding time, I think, is another big contributor to moving through that trough. That's when they find out what you're really going to do for them and what's, you kind of can't, or what needs to be a hack. So they get over that, okay, now here's how we're going to operationalize this, and then that's when they start up that slope.
Great. There's a couple of more fundamental questions coming in, and I want to make sure we address these. These are very important, I think. I'm going to skip down a question from Ana Martinez, who says she's just starting to map her customer's journey, and she's wondering if you can give some basic advice on how to do that. Are there some examples of ways for people to get started? Or maybe, Riley, you can answer that very briefly on how you got started. That might give her an idea.
Yeah. I mean, for us, you can sit in your office and think about what that customer journey is going to be, and then but I think more importantly, you just need to get in front of customers. So, whether it's going to customers who have been with you for a long time and you have a good relationship, and having that conversation, asking them what their journey was, I think that's a great conversation to have. But the more, it's a research exercise. It's a ethnographic exercise to go out and really start listening to customers, hearing what their journey is, hearing how their mindset changes as they go through those different stages. So I think for us, it was about getting out of the office, and I think that's always a good place to start.
Yeah, and I'll add to that just one technique to make it very operational and very quick. Conceptually, though, it's important that people approach customer success as an iterative process. There's too much changing out there to think you're going to set it up and then let it run. And the customer journey is similar to that. So my suggestion would be, in the very simplest sense, is get something together, anything, and then iterate on it. And the something that you should do, there's power in threes. Mother Nature loves threes. One, too many, right? And so onboarding, and then there's a post-onboarding stage, which is that I think we call it adoption, which is kind of established, or more of a steady state. So if you think of onboarding as the beginning, and steady state is where you want they're fully ingrained, they're fully using a broad set of tools. In between, there's a risky period of that habit forming that Riley described. And if you pay attention into those three stages and set up an engagement model for each, and with the mind toward moving to the next, then it's a way to quickly get started. In just an hour or two, you'll have an operational method with doing it that way.
Here's a question I can answer really easily. Will this presentation be available after the webinar? Absolutely. If you come to CMSWire tomorrow, you'll see not only a story on this webinar, but also a copy of it, and you're welcome to take a look at that. We'll make it available as we make available all our webinars. We just have a few minutes left for questions, and then we're going to have to close out the show, I'm afraid. But Mary Rosberg asked, are you monitoring the health of prospects in trial? Riley, yes, no?
For us, no, just because we don't have a trial phase. So we're normally selling annual contracts, and so we don't monitor that.
Harry, is that something you'd recommend?
Oh, absolutely. Many of our customers do. If you have a trial, then absolutely there's a health profile for trial customers, and there's ways to automate the messaging to them to move them through that trial. You want to identify by behavior who are the looky-loos and who really has some intent to buy, and you can triage out those with intent to those that should have contact with your direct sales, and those that should go through more of a self-serve or automated marketing path towards sign-up.
Great. Another quick question. Potential triggers or actions should all SaaS companies implement immediately if they haven't already? And what content types are key to moving customers from adoption to renewal? I'm going to give you each a shot at that, but please keep it brief because we're running low on time.
Yeah, that's not a question that lends itself to a brief answer. The one or two, it's kind of like, hey, down to brass tacks. Just tell me what the one or two are. They are different. It does depend, but certainly you want to see that people are using the product and actually using it as it was intended. So I'll use that as both one and two, kind of like the real estate analogy of location, location, location. The second part of that, Tom, could you remind me, please?
Yeah, let me see if I can find that question again. I was skipping through it a little bit. Looking for our producers. There it is. What content types are key to moving customers from adoption to renewal? Riley, I'm going to throw that part to you since content's kind of what Kapost is all about. What content types are key to moving customers from adoption to renewal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, and we actually do a lot of analysis of like LinkedIn profiles and surveys of customers to understand, what content, they consume, and I think we found for customers that more of the community model, not necessarily us always pushing content at them, but content generated from our customers targeted at other customers, just that knowledge sharing was a key piece. So we're not there yet, but we're starting to invest more and more in just that overall customer community aspect, because I think connecting the dots between your customers so they can share not only gives them a lot of value, but you can step back and glean a lot of insight from that conversation.
Terrific. We are getting down to the end of the program here. I want to make a couple of announcements. One is that we have about another, I think 20 good questions here. We're just not going to get to them, folks, but the good news is we're going to give you some contacts. You will be able to review this article tomorrow. You'll see the slides, but we're also going to give you some contacts. I'm going to move on to that now. Here's a whole list of ways to get in touch with these folks. I see sales at Totango and inquiries at Kapost. Those folks would probably be very happy to answer any of your questions. And Riley or Harry,
so am I.
Yeah,
Harry at Totango.com. That also works. I'll make myself available.
Great.
Yeah, mine is Riley at Kapost.com.
I love the simple world we live in. I'm just Tom at Simpler Media, so you can get me there. You can reach out to these guys or to me, and we'll be glad to help you out with any of these questions. This is an exciting new field, and I see just scanning the questions, a lot of these are really fundamental, basic questions that I think these guys can answer very quickly for you on a one-to-one basis, demonstrating customer success on their own scale. I want to thank you. This webinar has been recorded. The video and recap article will be emailed to you and available on CMSWire probably tomorrow or the next day. Thanks very much to Harry Hirschman from Totango and Riley Gibson of Kapost. I think everybody has had some great feedback on this. We're getting a lot of positive comments on our comments area. There have been some very great thought-provoking ideas, and I want to thank Totango for making this all possible by sponsoring today's event. Very important to us here. Now it's time. Can we have a drum roll, please? We have the VIP winners to the Digital Customer Experience Strategies Summit. This is September 24th and 25th at the Downtown Hilton in New York City. We want to thank those folks for being part of our program today. And we're going to ask our three winners here to please immediately use the chat function to contact our host and let us know that you are available or you are not available. If you are not available, we will give your award to an alternate, and I'll name a few alternates for you too. Our winners are Melissa Prue Cherie Jackson, and John Chaconas. John Chaconas, Cherie Jackson, Melissa Prue. Our alternate winners, should they not be available, will be Christina O'Brien, Courtney Caldwell, Greg Morgan, and I'll give one more, Megan Kind, in that order. So if you will all indicate to our host if you're available, that will secure your spot at that Digital Customer Experience Strategies Summit next weekend in New York City. Have a great time there. Wish I could go. Folks, it's been great having you with us. I want to thank everybody for attending. This is Tom Murphy for Simpler Media Group and CMS Wire. Please check out our site, and we'll see you next time.